Now, this is part 2 of the previous video where we talked about what happened to some of Kenya's biggest TV anchors. A lot of you asked me to cover more names I left out. People like Ken Mijungu, Kirigo Ngarua, Janet Mbugua, Allan Namu, Willis Raburu, and many more. So today, let's talk about them. And we'll start with a man who wasn't just a TV anchor. He became one of Kenya's best investigative journalists. You probably still remember him. Allan Namu.
This is a Boni forest. This is one of the thickest forests in Kenya by the admission of the Boni people, who are, by the way, helping the KDF track down the people who've been laying siege to various parts of Lamu West.
If you remember Namu, you know he wasn't just a normal news anchor. He was one of the best investigative journalists in Kenya. Allan Namu was born in Nairobi around 1983. He went to Strathmore School, then St. Mary's, and later joined USIU, where he studied journalism.
Sorry.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Allan Namu.
His career started at KTN in 2005 as an intern. From there, he grew into a reporter, producer, news anchor, and later special projects editor. Together with Mohammed Ali and Kasim Mohammed, he worked on shows like The Inside Story and Jicho Pevu. These shows exposed corruption, crime, and even disappearances. Some of their stories forced real investigations, and others made powerful people very angry.
It seems the further that we get into this forest, the taller the grass gets. Right now, it's right above me. This is a Boni forest.
Allan Namu left KTN primarily for personal and professional growth reasons. While at KTN, he had the freedom to do investigative journalism and build his brand, but he moved to NTV to discover more about himself as a journalist.
I moved to NTV more for personal reasons, in that there was nothing wrong with KTN by the time I was leaving. The partnership was going great. I left because I needed to discover who I was as a journalist.
He later returned back to KTN due to better salary and opportunities, but eventually left the mainstream media altogether in 2015 to start a media organization together with his friends called Africa Uncensored. Their first big story was Kanjo Kingdom, which exposed Nairobi County officers harassing street vendors and demanding bribes. Later, they went even bigger because in 2018, they released The Profiters, a documentary showing how leaders in South Sudan got rich during the civil war and hid their money in Kenya. But maybe the boldest story of all came in 2021 when Africa Uncensored was part of the Pandora Papers investigation. They found that even President Uhuru Kenyatta's family secretly owned companies outside the country. It was a massive story, and it showed how fearless Allan Namu was together with the team. Now, today, Africa Uncensored is still running, making powerful documentaries and training young reporters. Allan Namu has won more awards that we can't even count, and is truly one of the most respected journalists in Africa. And speaking of awards, Ongori Reports has been nominated as YouTube Influencer of the Year at the Pulse Influencer Awards 2025. If you want me to win, you can vote for me, man. I need your vote. It only takes a second to vote. Visit pulselive.co.ke/influencer-awards and scroll down to the YouTube section and vote for Ongori Reports. The link is also available down below at the comment section. If you've already done voting or you're planning to vote, thank you so much. Now, let's talk about another person, Masai. Masai started as a young TV journalist and later became a famous news anchor. But before we talk about his career, there's something many people don't know. His real name was Masai Abdullahi Kasim. Yes, he was actually born in a Muslim family, and his mother, Fatuma Abdullahi, gave him up for adoption when he was still a baby. He was then raised by a British missionary in a Christian home and later changed his name to Masai.
So I was born to Fatuma Abdullahi, just a single parent mostly, but then somehow some angel called Mary Henderson White, Ama to most people in Narok, Mama Kamau.
His first job in media was an internship at Hope FM, a Christian radio station. At that time, he was still using his Muslim name, Masai Abdullahi Kasim. This was surprising since the station was Christian but the intern had a Muslim name. Anyway, after Hope FM, he worked at Classic FM where he recorded voices for adverts. His big chance came in 2008 when he was only 22 years old. He joined NTV part of Nation Media Group, and reported on stories about human rights and the environment. For a short time, he also worked at CCTV Africa, which is now CGTN, before going back to NTV. There, he became one of the most trusted faces on television, known for his smart style and also fluent English.
Now, with the by-elections just concluded, one would not be labeled alarmist for getting concerned about the political future of the country, considering general elections are just around the corner.
In December 2022, NTV laid off many journalists and Mark Masai lost his job. But instead of giving up, he used that moment to try new things. Just 2 weeks later, he started the Social Newsroom, a podcast on Semabox Africa.
This is the Social Newsroom. I'm not alone.
The usual suspects. I'm Dennis Okari. Welcome to the future.
The show, posted on YouTube, talks about current news in a relaxed way and features interviews with important people. And he was doing this show together with a friend and journalist, Dennis Okari. At the same time, Mark moved into public relations. He became the director of PR and communications at a company called PMS, a company that has won many awards. Another big twist in his life was becoming an actor, yes. And this was actually a childhood dream. As a boy, he wanted to be a policeman or soldier. He also sang and performed as part of the African Children's Choir. That dream came true when he was chosen to play Detective Henry in a Kenyan crime drama called Faithless. In the show, is a detective, a good one, who follows the rules and tries to catch a crime boss. And even though the acting was a bit difficult, he enjoyed it and hopes to get more roles in the future. Now, there is another popular face you might remember. This guy. His name? Eric Njoka. And he once worked at both KTN and K24. So, what happened to him? At first, Eric was never supposed to be in the media world. In fact, he was expected to run a funeral home. Yes, a funeral home. His father was not poor. At one time, he was even a nominated MP in Kenya. He also owned a mortuary business, and the plan was for Eric to take it over, but that was not what Eric wanted. And honestly, who would? In many parts of Africa, including Kenya, working with the dead is seen as taboo.
My dad, my late father, decided to build a hospital and a mortuary in our home area in Kiambu County. You know, he just said, I'm going to build this hospital, it's for you. I want you to be the ones who are running this hospital. I want you to be the ones who are operating this hospital. We thought it's going to be a hospital at first. But alas, he built a mortuary.
Even though his father pushed him toward the family business, Eric had different dreams. He wanted to be a journalist, so against his father's wishes, he went to Tangaza College to study for a diploma in social communication. That was his first step into the media world. Eric's journalism career began in 2008 when he got an internship at K24. After 4 months, he was offered a full contract. He worked hard and built a name for himself. By 2011, he had joined KTN, a bigger station, where he became a news anchor alongside other well-known journalists.
So tomorrow, make a date with us because we have a full exclusive coverage of the wider Nyeri County, which we promised has a population of 690,000.
In 2013, Eric was fired from KTN. With no choice, he went back to his father's funeral business, the one he had always wanted to avoid. But surprisingly, that experience turned out to help him as a journalist. While other reporters might freeze when covering tragic events like the Dusit D2 attack or the Garissa University attack, Eric was able to stay calm. His time at the funeral home had prepared him to deal with death and grief. That gave him strength to cover tough stories without breaking down. On top of that, the money he made as a journalist helped him invest in the funeral business, which turned out to be very profitable. From the funeral home, he went back to K24, where he co-anchored a show called The Evening Edition. But when the company restructured and laid off many journalists, he left. Later, he got an impressive international role at Zee Media Corporation, India's largest news network, where he covers politics, current events, and world affairs.
A very good afternoon to you and many thanks for joining us on Citizen Live at 1 online edition. I am Kirigo Ngarua.
If there's a journalist who really disappeared from television, it's Kirigo Ngarua. If you've forgotten Kirigo Ngarua, she was once a popular face on Citizen television. Kirigo joined Citizen in its early days and worked there for about 8 years. She became well known as the host of the Power Breakfast show, which according to that time had more than 1 million viewers every single day. But in 2016, her time at the station ended suddenly. She was fired just minutes before a news bulletin. The reason was never explained to the public, and after that, she never went back to television. Instead, Kirigo worked as a consultant in a private company for 1 year. Later, she got a government job as a media communications and branding specialist in a coffee committee. I don't know how she got there. Anyway, she stayed there for 2 years before leaving in June 2020. Since then, she has focused on moderating corporate events and meetings, building a career outside the world of television. Just like Kirigo Ngarua, Terrian Chabet was also suddenly fired from Citizen Television in 2016. This was a shocking and painful moment for her because she was at the peak of her career. On the very day she was actually being fired, she was preparing for a big interview with a cabinet secretary. Anyway, Terrian's media journey began at KBC, where she worked from 2002 to 2007 as a news anchor, TV producer and director. At KBC, she hosted children's shows and produced television content. Later, she joined CNBC Africa as a reporter and producer. It was there that she developed a passion for business journalism. One of her first major interviews was with Sir Richard Branson, which was a big milestone in her career. Now let's talk about the breakthrough, which came when she joined Citizen Television. She anchored 9 p.m. primetime news and later hosted the Business Center show for 3 years alongside Michael Njenga. After leaving Citizen, Terrian shifted into leadership roles in the media. She became the CEO of Fanaka Television and later in 2019, the general manager of Metropole Television. She also entered the business world by starting Kiara Organics, a skincare and body products company that makes items for men, women and children. In recent years, Terrian Chabet has also been very active as a public speaker, moderating key government and business forums and speaking out strongly in support of women's empowerment. Janet Mbugua, who also worked at Citizen Television, has done a lot since leaving television. Her first media job was at Pulse FM in Mombasa, but she wanted more. Her dream actually was to work at Capital FM in Nairobi, and she did. She worked there as a radio presenter for a year before leaving to join university. When she came back, she opted to return to Radio Capital FM, but something even bigger happened. Janet Mbugua joined television. She began at KTN, first hosting a travel show. Later she moved on to reading the news, starting with the late night news, then weekend and lunchtime bulletins, before finally becoming a primetime news anchor. She also worked at ETV in South Africa for 2 years as a news anchor, reporter and producer of the show Africa 360. Her big breakthrough came when she joined Citizen Television. Here, she became very popular as a primetime news anchor, hosting shows like Monday's Special and The Big Question. Her pairing with Hussein Mohammed was one of the most loved duos on Kenyan television. Outside of news, she tried acting. In 2014, she starred in the sitcom Rush, playing the role of Pendo Adama. She also began her own foundation in Wadada to support the rights of girls in Kenya. In 2020, she launched JM Media Avenue, a company that offers media training and mentorship. In 2022, politician Moses Kuria even offered Janet Mbugua the chance to run as a deputy governor in Kiambu County, but Janet turned it down, choosing to focus on her projects instead. Then came a big surprise. After 8 years away from television, Janet Mbugua made a comeback in 2024. She joined the Nation Media Group as host of a new morning show called Fixing the Nation. The show airs on Nation FM, NTV and digital platforms, and she does that show together with Eric Latif and Mariam Bisha.
But whatever is happening, I think, has been frustrating, but it's also been very dangerous. And I'd also want to use the example that is most recent. We're talking here about tribal rhetoric.
When Willis was young, his father wanted him to study IT, but Willis secretly followed his own dream of working in the media. He joined Moi University, where he studied information science media. His first step into media came at K24, where he worked as an intern, but the real breakthrough came in 2010 when Citizen Television hired him as a reporter.
Most developers in the Nairobi area have indeed flouted some of the bylaws. However, the City Council says it will give them adequate time to make the necessary adjustments so that their buildings can be safe not just for them, but for those living around them.
From covering serious news, Willis slowly grew into one of Kenya's most versatile presenters. He anchored news, hosted the comedy segment Truth Meter, and later became the face of entertainment with the Friday night show 10 over 10 alongside Joy Muthengi. Now, 10 over 10 made him a household name, especially among the young people. Outside television, Willis also worked in radio on Hot 96 and even tried music. Yeah, in 2020, he surprised fans by teaming up with artists like Meja, Saru, and Reckless on the hit song Kalale. He later released another song called Jeshi. After 13 years at Citizen Television, Willis left in June 2023. He joined TV47, which he hosted the Wabebe Experience, and briefly worked there as the Director of Digital Services and Innovation. But he never stayed there because he also quit. Now, in July 2023, Willis stepped into government. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja appointed him as the chairperson of the Nairobi Festival Committee and Director of Communications. It was a big role that mixed his media experience with public service. But after just 3 months, Willis Raburu resigned. And just recently, he completed his master's in strategic communication and development at USIU. And yeah, that's the end of this video. Of course, we couldn't cover every single journalist who has ever left our screens. The list is just too big. But today, I focused on the ones you guys requested the most. Thank you so much for watching and for always supporting this channel. Before you go, remember, I was nominated as YouTuber Influencer of the Year at the Pulse Influencer Awards 2025. If you want me to win, I need you to vote. It only takes a second to vote. Just visit pulselive.co.ke/influencer-awards, scroll down to the YouTube section and vote for Ongori Reports. The link is also pinned in the comment section below. If you've already voted or you're planning to vote, thank you so much. Your support means everything. And with that, let's meet in the next video.